Once again, forgot to unmute myself as usual. Welcome to the LIBERcast episode 93. And I want to thank everyone to get in now in live and into when you come if you come back later to listen to it. Thank you for being there and listening to this important information. We need to talk as much as we can about it. What are the principles? What is morality? What is the tools to break the chains of slavery, essentially. So before we start, I'm gonna introduce the one what happened with it. Okay, so the One Great Work Network.com. I'm part of this incredible aggregate of people who have interesting, crucial information about a little bit of everything: the occult, psychology, occult traditions, morality, natural law, etc., etc. There's so much stuff that you can go there. There's hundreds of hours of interesting people and interesting stuff to look at. So onegreatworknetwork.com. So I'm honored to have Sara Cross with me tonight, and we're gonna have a awesome conversation about something that I think we don't have too much, never enough. It's care, and I present it this way because this is the foundation of of all good, of morality, of natural law. All these things are intimately connected together. So here we go. Welcome, Sara.
Hello?
Can you hear me fine? I think there's a little problem of connection there. So Sophie, let me see. I'm gonna resolve this little problem once again. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
I
Oh,
can hear
okay.
you.
Yeah, technical problem tonight. Not something we cannot get through it. So thank you, Sara, for being here tonight with me and joining the LIBERcast.
Thank you for having me on.
So please, Sara, just quickly go over your experiences and your path so we can know you a little bit.
Okay, well, I wouldn't even know really where to start. I have moved around a lot, all over the country of the United States, and in other countries as well, and it's just taught me, um, and with specific kinds of health issues, it's just taught me how to take in and discern certain types of experiences that I think are unusual. Well, that can be unusual for most people to just to know right away. I think, in my experience, then experience does matter with that kind of stuff. So you need to have that kind of background, I think. So I think moving around and then having a lot of, I guess, accidental diversity has kind of taught me to be very open towards the majority of people and able to maybe help them in their own way, like the ways that they need to be helped in. So that's kind of what I try to do.
Yeah, and sorry for that. I had like problem with my things now. I think we just got now. We have a people will not get the introduction. So I'm having Sara Cross that's going to talk with me tonight about the subject that is very awesome. So for please, what was the factor that gave you this hunger for this knowledge? Where does it start?
Excuse me. Um, I'm not really sure that I have like um, a pinpoint time frame in my life where I suddenly was like, oh, I've got to start trying to help people or teach people, this or that. It kind of just developed, I think, on its own. And it just, it was compounded, like, as I got older and maybe a little bit more thoughtful or empathetic with age, I started to understand, myself a lot better with the experiences that I've had. And I've had some strange, sometimes odd experiences that, like, at the time, I didn't even realize that they were the kind of experiences that were going to lead me into a path of actually trying to help people or teach people something useful or beneficial to them. They were just strange things that kind of happened, and I mean, a lot of them were things before I even started to understand any of the kind of knowledge, like manifestation, or the power of the mind, or anything about hermetic principles or anything like that. So it wasn't until maybe I got um, early 30s that I actually started to employ some of my own personal experiences into teaching. And
Hmm.
how I actually did that was through, I would teach sewing and knitting and crochet classes. And just by natural, the natural way of things, a lot of the things that I have kind of learned throughout my life, and mostly in the last like 10 or 15 years, more clearly, being able to more clearly understand them as like a fully fleshed out human being or adult, and being able to actually do something that would have been productive, like, something that would have actually done something. Um, I didn't start really doing that until maybe 10 plus years ago. So, and all of that was always done in person. I never really did anything online. It was all person to person. I'm sitting next to a person or a group of people, and this is like everything that yourself and so many others are doing online. I did it with people face to face, and in this like
Hmm.
really kind of low key type of way, but it would work, and it worked. And there, that's how I kind of that's how I operated. And like I'm distracting their minds. People would come to me to learn how to knit or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I got two left feet. I couldn't knit to save my life." And I'm like, "Well, I can teach anybody how to do anything. So come to my class." um, so that's how it would start, and I would distract them by teaching people who felt that they were actually. I actually had people who would come up to me and say, "I'm unteachable. Everybody has told me my whole life I'm unteachable for this thing or that thing or whatever." And I actually had people say that to me. And maybe this was maybe like one of those sentences that you hear, and it just, I don't know, the right word is I got triggered by it, and I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. And it would spur me on, and almost like a challenge, like, oh, you're unteachable, are you? Let's see how unteachable you really are. And so that was kind of, not to get too crazy or anything, but that was what really spurred on my my motivation, really, when people would actually say that to me. And I'm like, okay, so and really, like, if you can learn a skill, that means, like, if you can learn a skill like sewing or knitting, which is really very easy, if you can learn basic skills of adulting, really, then you can learn anything. And that includes knowledge of any kind. So,
And I did a little bit the same on my side, and I had the honor of having someone who took the path afterward, after having conversation with them. And I don't I'm not like offering perfection and complete healing. I'm offering knowledge, and this is, I think what you're doing is actually an embodiment of that. You know, the basic knowledge, like uh, uh sewing and things like that, that are very basic knowledge that we don't have anymore, almost anymore. This is so important, as much as this information about morality and principles, that we must at all costs preserve in this culture that is already dying. So this is I mean, we have a responsibility of preservation of these knowledge. Would you agree with that?
absolutely, 100%. And I think it is vital that people across the board understand what true morality is and all the aspects that come with that. Um, but I think it's just as important for people to understand what you do afterwards, or how you practice that after you know. You could know this stuff inside and out, up and down, all the way down the street and back. But if you are lost somehow, somewhere inside you, because you've got social engineering, you've got over, people who are like heavily medicated, by not necessarily by choice, and there's all kinds of different factors where you can understand all this information about the seven hermetic principles, and all this knowledge, and morality, and thought, emotion, and action, and um, the way to behave properly. You can know that all the way up the street and back, but if there's something that's kind of broken within you, and you're like, I can't be that person. I can't make that step. I can't go past that threshold. I don't
Hmm.
even know where to start. Then that's the block right there, I feel. And I can say from personal experience, and I've had backlash from people who have said, "No, no, no, some people are just unteachable." I've had people who have made comments. I mean, unfortunately, even in the freedom movement, who have said, "Oh, some people are just unteachable, some people are unreachable," and I'm like, I can tell you from my own personal experience that that is not true. It's not
Hmm.
true. And I have sat next to people who they know this information in and out once I talked to them. But because of society and how it operates globally, and because of the, fracture, I think, everybody having different culture is great and everything, but there's something within culture globally that kind of fractures us, and it separates us, it divides us in ways that are like just like I've often described them as thick black lines that just separate all of us. And I think like this is almost in its way like a social disease. But I've had people who come to me and they're like, okay, Sarah, I understand what you're saying to me. I wouldn't know how to begin in like living my life that way. Like where do I start? And like the thing that, I mean, I know that seems like a really like bizarre way to say that, but I think there is really a disconnection there. And I think it's because of probably mostly the, I hate to say corrupted global society that we all live in, you know, that's being just like constantly, you know, full of, it's just full of this toxin, you know, of social engineer or social behavior and media and entertainment and all that stuff. But it's like people are lost. And like, I mean, most of the people that I have dealt with in the past are not necessarily people who are of the standard. A lot of the people, like everybody's equal and important, just as important as everyone else, I feel. But a lot of the people I tend to seem to attract to be able to help are the people who I felt are kind of like myself, where there's still this like discarded part of society where you have people who are born in like an odd way, and the majority of the community or society just doesn't understand it. And then things happen, you know, people who have like the greatest of intentions end up doing things like putting people into institutions or medicating them from like as young as birth. And these are the kind of people they they're lost in a way where they can't just turn on once they understand the information, where they go, oh, I get it. I've been so wrong. They can't necessarily do that because, I mean, they know all the information I've given them, but there's something like biologically, and I think it's maybe it's on purpose, by the society we have, you know,
Mhm.
by with medications and yada yada, all that stuff. It could be something that's kind of being done in a way on purpose, and there are people, they're just born in a different way, and they can't necessarily always they can't always just develop the same way as like some of other people who can just be like, aha, I got it. You know, they need somebody to be there in person, holding their hand, or teaching them even a skill when they've had their whole life people who have said, you're not good enough, or even if they're not saying it directly, you're not good enough. It's this subconscious, like emotional energy that's being put out, like if you're born, quote, sick or whatever. Um, you know, it builds this psychological problem that's deep rooted trauma. And that person, just like, it doesn't matter what I know, it doesn't matter how what kind of knowledge I take, and I'm never going to be good enough or capable enough to be able to do what this person does. So my method was kind of, if I can teach them a very small physical skill that is a practical lifelong type of skill, then that is the jumping off point to be able to go anywhere you want. Like sometimes, you know, we shouldn't need like a kind of crutch or something that tells us, um, okay, you know, this book is my talisman, or this wand is my, you know, my connection to my power. You shouldn't need that. But some people, they need that little push, and they need something to say, oh, well, I can do this. And after a while, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so I can do this, and then I can do this. And it's a building block process. It's like rebuilding the human psyche.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And I I I just want to bring up that um, today, as it we are today, mental illness is engineered into the masses. So we have a very repressive culture and intergenerational mind control that happened generation to generation to generations, and it's getting worse at every generation. What I mean by that is that our parents were in into a cube. I want to use this 3D form because it's very telling. We're building ourselves into a cube, essentially a mind prison. And where does it start? It starts home. Our limitation, our supposedly limitation, are spawn from that exactly point. Is how do your parent treat you? And sadly, most people don't have, they don't even know they don't know. This is how deep the ignorance of people is actually. We are confronted as conscious people, and we are an handful of people. We are a little percentage. It's scary. Okay, so what we have to do is bring back principles, bring back this knowledge that can freeing us from slavery. And it's awfully simple. So I don't want to get into too much into mind control because we can talk all night about that. But um, I think victimization and self-loathing is one of the worst thing that people can be inflicted with, or by itself, by himself, by herself. We are inflicting these limitation, these pain, these sorrows, these stress, these anxiety by ourselves. We don't need anyone to do it. This is self-created fears. Fear of lack, fear of responsibility, and fear of love, of freedom, and death. This is essentially the basic for this society, actually. And the fear of the unknown is the most powerful of them all, because
Yeah.
people who are ignorant will be afraid of everything because they don't know, they don't want to know, and they're gonna be afraid all their life of the unknown, and the unknown is covering almost everything. So uh, fear of illness, fear of death, fear of loss, fear of grief, fear of self-responsibility, all crucial things that we must go into life and not be afraid of it, because death is part of life. There's it's coming together. Your parents made you, and they give you death. This is how it works. And I don't want to talk too much and cut you, but I think I'm gonna push upon this particular information there, because we are always self-inflicting. We're self-inflicting pain and deceptions and lies and fear all the time. And you were talking about those peoples who were telling, oh, I'm not able to do that. How do you know if you didn't try? And
That's my point exactly with them.
yes, And this approach there, and please tell me, how did you do that? How do you, from where is the principle that you take to see this information? How, what is your approach with the people who don't know nothing about it, because they don't know this vocabulary we're using here? You know, people will have the glossy eyes, and they're gonna get lost into the words. But how do you approach this onto these people?
Well, I think, well, first, I think it's a little bit unusual the way my connection with people work out, because um, I'm in this current physical body that I'm in. I'm in a position of physically poor health from birth. So it gives me this perspective of how it is for people who spend a lifetime with, I mean, it's not somebody who's like 40 and suddenly has like whatever thing that pops up. It's that there are people who they spend their whole life like from birth, or maybe almost right after birth, you know, as a child or a young adult, and they have a different type of energy about them. And this is one of the things that I have found out through my life, that it's a different type of connection than the kind of, you know, connection I would have with somebody who isn't in that. So like I'm kind of already in this like unspoken circle of, you know, they know me and I know them, you know, and we're brothers and sisters because even if we don't know each other's name, so we're already connected that way. And most of the people that I've worked with as a community volunteer, working with the community, has been, most of the people have been in that kind of position. So there's already that kind of energy connection that kind of is connecting to each other. Like we know each other before we even speak to each other. So then I have that with them already. And I know that's really weird and it sounds really strange, to put it that way, but that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to me. And, um, you know, so when I kind of figured out and I had my head wrapped around all the knowledge that I know now and like the skill sets that I know now, I'm like, okay, how do I employ this in a way where I am able to speak to people who have been systematically, medically usurped from almost birth or from before birth? How do I reach
Hmm.
that? Because unfortunately, the majority of people who teach this kind of stuff, you're probably not going to reach those people because their minds, their bodies, their whole lives, everything in their hemisphere has been completely taken over from maybe before they were even born by the medical institution itself. Just because you know, your parents or whatever, they don't know what to do. They're going to, you know, going to every single length of that they possibly can to try to make sure that their baby doesn't die. And this is that it's that, you know that it's that emotion. It's all emotion. That behavior, it all comes from emotion. There's no thought
Hmm.
before the emotion. It's instant emotion, which the system itself creates and wants people to behave like. So there's no thought before the emotion. It's just emotion and action instead of thought, emotion, and action, which would make the
Hmm.
difference, I think, in how somebody develops, whether they're born different or not. So I had to take all of that into consideration when I was thinking, how can I reach a group of people that I know they themselves, they don't even know themselves. They feel in themselves that they are unreachable. They don't even see, a lot of them that I've spoken to, they don't even see themselves as valuable. And
Yes.
that alone, when you feel like you have no personal value, it doesn't matter what you want to do or what you know or how you feel or what you support. That stops you from doing everything. So I had to take in all that into consideration. So I'm like, okay, I need to do something that is going to show them with their own eyes through their own behavior, their own actions, show them that their action is going to produce something amazing. And the only way I knew how to do that was to show them how to create through sewing or yarn craft. And for most of the people who came to me, I think that it worked because they kept coming to my class. So um, it seemed to work for me, and I'm not saying that method would work for I had a very under the radar kind of method, not very loud, not very, you know, it's you know you better learn it this way, like I wasn't I'm not really like that myself because I kind of know myself, and the way I learn things is very kind of weird too. I have to hear it or see it a certain way, and then I'm like, oh, duh. So I get that. I get where their heads are at, and I understand that a lot of people who are in that position, not everybody, not everybody. I don't mean to make that sound like a blanket statement, but a lot of people who are in a position like that, um, they end up their minds and their bodies are in this fog, in a haze of over medication. They're over medicated, or they're over um, indoctrinated, not just by the entertainment system or the media or the government or whatever. They've got the physical um, the physical weight of the medical life weighing down on them, and it's a haze. You live in a haze when you're like that. So
Hmm.
it's just a different way of, they don't see how, like, say me and you can see. They can't walk out of it necessarily unless they really, really fight. And I've met some fighters in my life. They know how to fight if you give them the right tools.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I think we're there to as witnesses from that. I mean, the power of the humans, of our species, is incredible. We are creators, we are healers, we are empathic creatures. And and your your message is about empathy and care. And I like it. I like this approach of being in the world and sharing sharing uh, uh, um, a truth, sharing truth, sharing your experiences as a human, and these people and experiences, and this is how we grow as humans, is this interrelationships that we we are craving for it. Most people were very affected by what happened in the uh, 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 three latest years, and this hunger for having friends and relative and family around, and all these things, that it's a torture. It's a torture for everyone. And the problem, not only that, I was taking this example from the pandemic, and I didn't have that during the pandemic. I made a lot of friends, there. I made a lot of I met a lot of beautiful people in these years. Um, I I I think this is one of the things that we need to reinforce is local communication, is having local networks around people with good hearts and empathy and care to reinforce these links together, these networks of people. And from an individual place, it is an incredible, it's an incredible and empowering thing to do it with the good intention, to be there as humans and treating each other's like brothers and sisters. We are not all at the same place mentally, nor spiritually, nor emotionally. And I think that one of the struggles that we have is to be empathetic for with the people and putting ourselves at the same level when we're talking about mindset and emotions and feelings. And it's very hard and is very demanding. I know what I'm talking about. I'm a very intuitive uh, um, person. I approach people, and from time to time I'm having these people that come around and we're talking about something and I never see them again, and I'm learning a lot from these people. I learn a lot. I learned a lot from the struggles of other people, and I don't want to be cynic about this. No, I don't want to tell people that you use them. Well, actually, essentially the experiences of other people and how they're telling their stories. It's a very empowering thing when you, sure, some people are going through depression, and you talk about meds and alcohol and drugs and things like that. And this is very important that we to be there for them, for these people when they're in need. Some people will go to the church, some people will go to their friends or family, but not everyone has a church. Not everyone has friends or family near. So I mean it's a beautiful symbiosis that we're doing in that. And I'm doing this podcast with you tonight because I care, because I like my brothers and sisters, and I want them to get the best of what we're bringing. And I think this is what you're doing. You're taking your particular experiences and talents and you're using it for the betterment.
Well,
And
I
it's a
yeah,
beautiful thing.
yeah, I'm doing my best. And like I agree with you totally on all of that. Like I look at, and especially even in the last 3 years, I look at the people out in the community, and all I can, like for myself, like I know there's always the, you know, initial thought of like, what are you even doing? But really, my real feeling is, like all I can see is their fear and their pain, and how lost they are, and to some, just and it's all unique experiences, like, and how they're lost, and how they're dealing with, whatever fear, however it is, whatever that source is coming from. But fear is fear. Fear, like you were saying, fear of death, fear of anxiety,
Hmm.
fear of depression, fear of being sad. This is all fear. It's all fear, all of it. And so even hate comes from fear.
Yep.
So it's the root of all of these different things that are coming. And then, like the last few years, I just thought people went completely mad. That was like my first initial thought. Mostly because I've spent my entire life with specifically specialists telling me to do the opposite to keep my health in check of what they were then telling people to do. So I thought they just went mad at first, and I'm just like, Jesus, it's like, mass hallucination or something. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, maybe this is just because this is a building stacking effect of generational societal engineering, brainwashing, whatever. Um, of at some point it was like the thing that broke the camel's back. Everything just exploded, and it was the catalyst that unleashed everybody. It just triggered that thing all the way in the back of people who were relatively sane in thought, and they all suddenly went crazy. It just triggered that one little thing in the back of their head, um, and they all started acting like lunatics. And I'm like, okay, where is this really coming from, this behavior?
Hmm.
It must be coming from, well, generational conditioning, societal modern day conditioning, brainwashing, cognitive dissonance, all of those things kind of
Yeah.
stacked on top of each other, multiplying, constantly
Yep.
compounding and compounding over many, many, many years, many lifetimes, and through many, many sources. Um, and you just didn't notice it until, that happens, and it just exploded. So I had to think about, okay, it's coming, it's not because necessarily that all of these people are just lost causes, because they're not. Because I've worked with these were people in my community. They knew me. They, they were people that I had very close connections with. I knew them. And all of a sudden, just like that. So I'm like, something else is happening here. I mean, I won't say what it is. We all really know what that is. But I knew that if I was going to get the people, because it was happening on a mass scale globally, I knew that if I was going to get back to being able to help people in the way I knew that they needed, and I knew where they were coming from, and be able to take them in still as the way they were behaving in that moment, kind of crazy, and in this place where it just was totally frantic. How was I going to be able to take them in and still look at them with love and care, and
Yeah.
understand that no matter what they are actually accepting or doing in this physical shell that they are currently manifested in this one lifetime, they are still a fraction of spirit, and they are still my brother and sisters, and they are still part of me, whether I like that or not. They're still a part of who I am. I'm a part of who they are. We're all fractions of spirit, essentially, like, ultimately. And we're all manifesting it, and experiencing in insane, different, unique, bizarre ways in this physical, beautiful reality. Because that's the only way it can be done. Boots on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I knew that deep down, you dig away, you dig at, and you dig all the way to the bottom of all that muck of that physical nonsense, because a lot of it is physical nonsense, all these labels and identifications and whatever, whatnot. All that stuff is just muck, muddying up the what and who you really are. And I know that now through a lifetime of my own personal experiences of trying to of figuring that out for myself, of who and what I am. So I knew something inside me. I couldn't bring myself, even in this craziness of the last few years, of the way people were acting, the way people treated me because I have cystic fibrosis was just crazy. And the way, the way they were acting, the way they treated me, it was just, I was upset about it at first, but I knew, I quickly came to realize that I couldn't give up on them just because it was like, you know, it's like dealing with a 4-year-old who hasn't figured out how to use utensils correctly yet. So I was like, okay, I'm going to back it up and we're going to try again. So that was where it kind of landed. And then I started thinking about, okay, how can I translate that into more internet work? Maybe I can help something to that degree online.
I mean, this is I did start a little bit. I didn't want to start the LIBERcast before I was ready in the rhetorics and the understanding of the subject that I wanted to bring into it. And I think we need a deep introspection as individuals. And I think the beautiful thing that you said, I really enjoyed this conversation. It's very refreshing and a lot of positive things and inspiring for the people who are listening. I have great comments there. People are liking it very much, and it's very a change in my from my usual tone of the show. I'm more of a vitriolic kind of guy. I take this approach. I this is what you were talking about. This is what I have to work. This is where my little wall that I have to cross or get through. It's that I don't have this feminine approach of I care, but I care in another way. I try to put the message as bluntly as I can, because I think the people that I'm looking for are the people who will be able to look into the good truth and the good knowledge and the good rhetorics and understanding about these things, but being just not lying to yourself anymore, and being honest and respectful with yourself and with the other people. And this is, I think, is the basic of everything. What is the relationship that you have with yourself? I'm struggling, and this is I mean, and I'm years into it. I'm still struggling. I'm still fighting about this against this conditioning, and I'm very honest about this. And this is why I cannot have I cannot do it. This approach that you have with people, this uh, um, caring, nurturing aspect, I need to work on that. And because I like I said, this is how I learned. It's by the people who were giants, and just I had I'm trying to find it there, because I stood on the shoulders of giants, and I enjoy the people who can say the truth as bluntly as I can, I like it very much. I like hard truth. I and not much people like it, though. you know and I this is where I struggle, and this is where I want to put my energy in, and this is why I created the LIBERcast. It's to break this cycle of, because I'm very I live I love being alone. So I need to balance these two things together. I have a family and children, and I have my wife, and I have friends and things like that. So I chose a life. So I had to work on this part of myself, and this is the same thing with unknown people, these strangers that and having this conversation can be very inspiring, because some people already have the fire inside of them, and they're searching for this information. How do we heal the community? How do you heal the people? It's beginning in your own temple. It's here that it starts. You want to give. I know people who don't have any idea of what we're talking about, the occult or principles or natural law, but they're giving anyway. They're sharing, they're helping the poor, and they're awesome people. And they don't know that it's just pure care. It's love, it's empathy, and this is what we need the most. Some people can do it, some people cannot do it, and it's okay. It's okay. We are completing ourselves together. I'm coming back to for what you were telling. We are an osmosis of people. We have to learn how to rebuild that, how to love ourselves, respect ourselves as a brotherhood, as a sisterhood, as a family. We are a family, and family can be dysfunctional. No, not everybody is getting along. It's okay, no problem, but at least being on the same page, at least working hand in hand for the betterment. And it's not hard. We already have all the solutions. It's our people are ready to do it. This is the question. And this is, I think, what we're doing. You're doing it another way. And I want to thank you for what you did, for the work that you put on the people, and talking with them, learning them things, and giving them back their self confidence. It's a
And
beautiful thing. It's very empowering. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
well, thank you. I mean, um, but I that was it exactly. It's if you've been stripped away to such a degree that you have, like I was saying, like you're saying, you know, self-respect, self-value, self-love, and even if it was an unintentional thing, like if it was unintentional that this is what developed within you from family or friends or whatever situation you were in, maybe people didn't actually intend to give that person that. If you don't have that, if you don't even have self-value, you really don't, like, I know you can't get anywhere, period. So that that I mean, I really wanted to show people who I knew could not break out of the cycle on their own, or find a way to be able to break out of the cycle through, like, other teachers, like yourself, or like some of the other people in the movement. um there there are people who just, they need somebody there, in the person, somebody who's going to sit there and talk to them and listen to their crazy shit for like 2 hours, or someone who's going to like give them a hug when you part ways, somebody who is going to let you text them and be like, hey, my kitchen burned down, what do I do? um there's a different type, there are just some people who need that. And I recognize that maybe a little bit too late, but I did end up recognizing that. And like you said, we are a family. You have your family in your home, your husband, your children, or your wife or your children, your brothers and sisters that you're born with, or your community family. Everybody in your neighborhood is that's your community family. So, I mean, think about what it was like 100 years ago, 200 years ago. You know, you had smaller towns, smaller cities, even. You know, cities not really much bigger than the size of a large town, and still everybody knew each other and everybody was connected in this. They had a different kind of community connection, and now it's a lot different, and those connections are unraveling. And because of this, we get farther and farther from each other. And I think that that's also causing a lot of this problem with, you know, people just not knowing and general ignorance, and
Yeah.
this lack of value in the individual. And I know that if you can't even have value and love for yourself, then you can't go anywhere. So yeah, I mean, that was what I was hoping to achieve. Like, I'm like, is just, even if it taught them, even if I didn't teach them anything, if through the course of me, of sitting down and me trying to teach them, if they learned the self value that they had, that was enough. And like I said, it's a building block process. You have to rebuild when you've been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you can't just go and live in a burned down house. You gotta rebuild it brick by brick. And
Absolutely.
so that's just how I felt about it. And I agree with you completely. We're a community, we're a town community, we're a global community, and we're connected to each other, even if we can't see it or feel it in this physical modern world that we're currently in. And I do think that all, you know, working online and getting it out will spread more and more of good knowledge. But I do think that the time that people maybe should take more time to spend a day and go to their local community centers and just sit down, and even if you're not really doing anything, just sit down and like be with the people, and, you know, do whatever the, you know, stupid arts and craft thing is going on there, or, you know, be involved in whatever activity is happening, or just going and hanging out there. You know, a lot of community centers, they offer places where you just go and you sit and you have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever, and you just end up having conversations with strangers, you know, maybe sometimes for hours. And that in itself will start to rebuild those connections. And it gets,
Mm-hmm.
it's practice like anything else, like learning how to ride a bike. You know, you have to practice every skill, and that includes being connected to your other physical manifestations of yourselves. So
I
that's
mean, this this um this is, I think, one of the biggest struggle that we have as a civilization now. People are connected like you and me right now. We're at both sides of the continent and we can talk, and every communication is facilitated at a state is scary, but people are separated from one and each other, even if they have cell phones. It's getting worse and worse, and we can see this awkwardness slowly instilling itself into society. You know, people are getting very emotional. People are getting very scared and angry because they're confused. And when we have to go over that, this is where the action starts. Is where How much do you care? How much do you care about your brothers and sisters, your neighbors, your family? How much do you really, really inside of you care? This is where it starts. And I'm telling you, it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy even for us who are doing this job, this work, this great work that we're doing. It's not easy. It's not easy because we already know that. We already know how that care and principles and natural law are there to help us, are there to guide us into our behaviors and our thoughts and our emotions. But most people don't know it. And we have to find a way to vulgarize and talk about it in a way that people will understand.
Yep.
Most people are strictly imprisoned into this media, social media thing. I'm using it as a tool. I can learn a thing or two, meet new people, but that's much of it. I Facebook as such, I considered it as a dumpster fire. And every crazy people who are hiding behind their screens, every psychopathic, narcissist, and neurotic people, it's a paradise for them.
Yeah.
And it's I mean and when you actually share good stuff on there, there's people gonna criticize it. There's some people who have a condescending comment about it. You know, I was sharing about this gathering of people, and I had backlash because of political idea. But I'm not in politics. I don't give a fuck about that. You know, but it's so easy to being a jerk into the internet.
Yep.
And I know what I'm talking about. Okay, I've been there. I was there too, until I realized it. I realized that it was worthless to try to convince someone on the internet. The only way that I found to do it is the LIBERcast, broadcasting my voice, this knowledge, and sharing as much as I can these people who are implicating themselves in the community. And this is what I did. I invited people who were working in the community, bringing food to the poor in the streets, and clothes and things like that. And I tried to put an emphasis on this, and not showing already the dark corner, not always the dark corners, because there's a lot of dark corners. We can describe the prisons all night, but essentially what I wanted to bring, it's hope, empathy, and care, because we're seeing a lot of garbage outside, even in the community. We're seeing now there's this political influence. Some people are getting into these fake news all the time. We're bombarded. Here in Canada, I'm in Quebec particularly. I'm It depresses me. It's like fighting against the wind. Infantilized, ignorant people. And not all, I'm not saying all people. There's a lot of good-hearted, incredible people who are doing a job to bring happiness and basic needs to other people. Helping, this is what I do. I'm offering people to help them, and then if they need me, I'm there. this is what I can do with the context of my life. So if by example, someone asked me to bring them and drive them to the groceries, half an hour away from home, and I did it for free. I did it with my time. This is how, and this is how we can do it. I'm not asking them anything. If they want to give me money for a gas, I'm happy with it, but I'm doing it because I care. And when I can help, this is what we do. And these little things, every detail are important.
Yep.
Even if you're smiling to a stranger, you're smiling, you say hi, bonjour to a stranger, maybe you enlighten her whole day or his whole day because of that. Taking time to have a conversation with strangers.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm a big fan of, one-on-one kind of community work, because, you
Hmm.
know, sometimes you're right. All it takes for somebody to have that value or care instilled back, it's like installing part of their programming back, that it's already there, but it's getting kind of like ripped out of them by society and by conditioning and whatever upbringing or whatever medication they've been pumped full of. But sometimes just being there and having a cup of tea with someone, or walking a stranger across the street, or giving them a smile, like you said, this these are things that it can change everything for that individual. And you may not know ever that you were the catalyst that triggered that. But I know that it happens because I've seen it in my community. I have been in conversations, I've been in positions where, like a situation where I'm having somebody fight me tooth and nail, like all the way. Like they hate me. They just can't stand anything I'm doing. And then like 2 months later, they come back and they're like, Sarah, I need to talk to you. And so I've had these experiences myself personally, and I'm not saying maybe it's not most people don't have them, but maybe most people don't have it, you know, experiences like that. But I have, and so I know that it's possible. And I know even the most downtrodden, even the most mentally controlled, mind controlled, most brain damaged, whatever, even the most hard headed of people who will absolutely think you are an absolute nut job, like the kind of people who would think that to the grave. I know these people can come back. I know they can come back because it's, like I said, we're all fractions of spirit. So, and that's what spirit wants. But one of the things that I did learn was I could not force or push. I had to let it happen organically in the way that their fraction of spirit needed it to happen, so that that fraction of spirit could go have that, one day have that aha moment. And when I pulled back and I stopped being like, angry several years ago about BS, and just, when I stopped being resentful, when I stopped being angry, when I stopped being, you know, annoyed with like how society was in general, when I pulled that back and I looked at it from the other side, I knew that that was the only way that it could happen, was that some people are going to get it right away. It's going to go straight away. The light bulb is going to turn on. And some people are going to need time. and patience and love. And they need that cushion. And so that was a valuable lesson I had to learn, figuring
Mhm.
that out. And you know, I kind of had to learn that way myself. You know, like even though throughout my whole life I had very strange, like, I mean, I only think about these experiences now and I'm like, huh, that was an odd thing that I experienced, even though at the time I had no idea it was like an odd experience, because they're experiences where now I know through, you know, some, you know, more adult mindset, years of experience and knowledge and things I know now, that those were experiences where spirit was talking to me, where God or source or whatever you want to call it, you know, whatever the thing that set all things in motion, it was talking to me. It was prodding me, and it was saying, pay attention, pay attention. And you know, that happens more than, like, I think about these things in my life now, and that happened to me more than once when somebody said something to me, or I something happened to me, a situation happened to me, or I saw something happen to somebody else. And then years later, I'm thinking, huh, now that's like actually connecting in this way that now I actually understood what the hell was happening there, or what was being said to me, or what that situation was. And so when, you know, taking all of that in, knowing that finally, that helped me a lot with understanding that some people, they need you to sit there and hold their hand, literally physically holding their hand, and producing love, you know, generally, your general love for humanity kind of love, um, even if they are resisting, because you don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or in 10 years or in the next lifetime. Something at some point is going to make it snap, and they'll wake up. And maybe it won't be this lifetime, maybe it's the next, or whatever. So I had to learn that as a hard lesson myself, because after a certain point, I realized that that's what happened to me.
The This is what I learned like a few years ago about synchronicities. Uh, Coincidence doesn't exist in this realm. I learned a lot from that. You know, when I was talking about learning from the others, seeing people experiencing life, and being very in an observation stance. You talk with them, you look at them, and words and body language is very very efficient when you want to learn about people. What I learn mostly is, and I don't want to make fun about that, but this, I learned a lot from the mistakes of the others. And why? Because I'm very 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 wary and careful and observant when it comes to the others. And this is one of and I'm the kind of guy who's gonna be silent in the corner of the room, but I'm gonna look at everyone, look how they move, look out there, they're talking, with their behavior, you know. And it's a very 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 efficient way to learn. It's
Mm.
because why do I say that coincidence doesn't exist? Is everything that what lived in my past is now blooming into something. And when you realize that whatever the choice you made, bad or good, and the way you took, the way it turned, the choice you made in your life that changed everything, everything matters. Life will tell you things. You have to be you have to look all the time. It's going to be people, it's going to be events, it's going to be context, it's going to be something that you didn't realize, something you didn't see before, you know when it comes to behaviors of people or societal phenomena. But essentially, we have already everything. Because why do people don't notice? Because they don't have the knowledge. Everything is connected together. Everything is connected together in our life. Just in our microcosm, as a person, you are under cause and effect. You are in the causality. Means that every your move, every words that you're using is going to have a causality attached to it. Cause and effect. Principle of correspondence. Very important when we're talking about psychology or psychopathologies. People are acting like how they are inside of them. They're going to project, but you don't have to take it. You don't have to take the anger of people. You don't have to take this sadness from them. I know what I'm talking about. I'm a very empathic person, so I had to learn how to chill myself from that, to protect myself from these energies. And I'm not telling you it's to not do it, to not expose yourself to that. It's learn how to deal with this. It's mine, it's yours. It's a boundary, it's a limit that you put yourself in. Some people will try to use you. Some people will try to abuse. They're going to lie to you. They're going to sell you bullshit. They're going to tell you everything that you want to hear. And this is where it really starts, is how to do it.
Yeah.
And we're an hour and 20 minutes in, and I want to finish onto a good word, in a solution. So on my part, I just want to say, you want change? Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look how you behave with yourself, how you talk to yourself. How much do you care? How much do you care about yourself? It's not an egoic thing that I'm telling. It's a very sincere, honest overlook on your own behaviors. This is how it starts. It starts with inside of you. Afterward, even if it's not perfect, even if you because I'm into shadow work and all these things, it's never done. It's never finished. So what we have to do, it's not only talking, it's giving the example. Share, help freely, help strangers, help your family, help anyone who needs something. What I mean, it's not get abused by thieves or frauds or things like that. It's helping with your heart, like we were telling earlier, helping people go to bring their groceries, you know, helping people how to learn something, having a conversation, drinking a tea or coffee with them, and let them talk. You don't have to say anything. Just listen to them. And this is a good way to start. Give and share without asking anything.
Yep.
We have to give the example. This is where this is what we have to learn to the children. Not getting abused, but sharing. Helping isn't money. Thank you, Josie. Helping isn't necessarily money. You can do it. You can help people monetarily, but essentially when I help people, it's not money. You need help. If I can help you, I'm not rich myself, and I do what I can, with the time I have, with the context of my life. And this, just do something. Just start. This is the way. This is the way. Just start. Just do something, and everything it's gonna be. It's gonna unfold from there. You we're
Yep.
sharing. It's because you have the desire of it, because you care.
Yep.
You have a comment,
Well,
a positive comment, a solution for the people.
yeah. I mean, well, like as a kid, I was taught sharing is caring, and I think maybe I took that to heart a little bit. And like you were saying, lead by example, even if it has no pay, pay, payback or payment. Don't expect favors. Just create for the sake of creating, because it's what we do best as the manifestation of our higher selves. And you know just do love for the sake of loving. That person that like you said, the internet, people are mean on the internet. That person that you might look at and go, oh my god, they're lost, they're wearing a mask, they're doing this and that. That person is in pain, and even if they don't even understand their pain and how they hurt, they are. And maybe all they needed is a stranger to go up to them and give them a hug and be that total weirdos, like, well, what are you touching me for? Do that, because you never know what it's going to do. Sharing is caring, and that means sharing your care, sharing your love and your empathy for your, global humanity family out there.
We like Michael Tessarians said in one of this presentation, you have about 75, 76 springtime. What are you gonna do with it?
That's right. Yep.
So thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing with me tonight. I appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation. Very inspiring, very empowering for the people to have a beautiful, positive approach in all this darkness that we're living in this era of technology and tyranny. And this is what we need. This is what we need. We need love, empathy, care, and someone who and some people, most people, we need everybody to start doing right now. This is yesterday, like last week. This is how much we need it. So thank you everyone who have listened all the way through. I appreciate your presence. You're the pillars of the LIBERcast. So thank you everyone, and take care. And we're gonna see a sub. I think it's gonna be a French one, the next one. So see you soon, people. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.